My guest today is Laurie Goldman. She's the Director of Public Engagement for the ClimateMusic Project, which makes use of musical vibes for public engagement and action to combat climate crisis. So the single most important issue of our times. Thanks, Laurie, for taking your time and talking to the Real News Network today.
Thank you for having me.
Let me come to Icarus in Flight, which is a climate change data-driven classical music composition. So what's the story behind it? Could you kind of illustrate it for us?
Sure. So Icarus in Flight is it was our second portfolio composition for the ClimateMusic Project, and we decided to focus on the story of the human drivers of climate change. So population growth, changes in land use, and fossil fuel use. And this is all based on our science team and our executive team kind of getting together and talking about what stories need to be told out there, what's important for the public to understand, and how can we convey those stories. And so it was a collaboration, the science team and the composer got together, and we determined what data sets we have, and then the composer has kind of license to determine the methodology, the musical compositional methodology, to create a work based on the science.
So where you sit, what do you see? How successful have you been in terms of actually motivating people to take action and combat climate challenge? Are there any examples that you wish to share with us?
Sure. I mean, we've had a lot of feedback from our audiences that, say that, now for the first time, because our compositions expand a number of years. So everything goes from the past into the future. And what we attempt to do is show two scenarios for what could be. The business as usual scenario where we don't really take enough action, and the mitigation scenario where everyone kind of comes together and we take appropriate action. The solutions we already know are there. We just need to motivate people to take them. So we've gotten comments from our audience members that are like, oh, now I really understand. I've seen kind of what the world was like when I was born, what it was like when my children were born, and what it might be like when my grandchildren might be born. And I know this will have a dramatic effect on future generations, and I am going to work with your organizations or work with my own to create community. So we work with organizations like Interfaith Power and Light, which is a community of faith-based organizations, thousands of them around the country, and they do advocacy on climate action. I think they have a lot of focus on electrification, for example. We work with them. We work with the San Francisco Department of the Environment. We work with solar energy organization that helps people finance community solar. We work with Global Footprint Network, which helps people learn about what their own footprint is. And we work with Cool Effect, which does mitigation projects around the world, and people can support their actions. And we're looking to expand that. But we've just scratched the surface. So our next step is to actually we're creating a tool to allow musicians around the world to do their own climate music and engage their own communities. And we're hoping we've reached thousands of people, but we're really hoping to reach millions of people in order to drive action at scale. And convince people that this is a really important issue. I think people understand already that it is an important issue, but sometimes knowing that something's important and doing something about it is a different thing. So we're trying to steer in that direction.
So let me ask you this. What are some of the limitations to this project? I mean, for once, people who are actually experiencing a lot of climate crisis, like communities on the periphery or in the global south, naturally they don't have the musical sensibilities or the access even to enjoy something or be participants in this dialogue. So how do you come around that?
Yeah, that's a challenge. I mean, climate justice is a very important issue. The biggest impacts of climate change are going to be are already on communities that um, are more disadvantaged. And, we hope that we can bring our work to schools, be it in museums and places where there is broad access. So one of the things that we are trying to do is to get involved with schools in all types of communities. And I think music is definitely a tool because I think everyone does or listens to music of some type, no matter where they are. And I think schools are a great way to reach out. A lot of museums around the country have programs where they reach a broad array of communities, and we'd like to kind of expand to work with those museums and cities and towns and
Right.
around the world and around the country.
And finally, any up and coming projects that you like to walk us through, something that we should watch out for?
Sure. You'll have to stay tuned a little bit, but our next project is actually going to be geared towards children, focused on biodiversity, and we're planning to do an animated short that will focus on forest and biodiversity and species. That will be presentable in a much more online format, so we can reach many, many more people. And we're working with an internationally renowned composer to develop that. So
Right.
stay tuned.
Right. Any efforts to kind of turn the COVID-19 genetic structure into any musical composition?
I think someone has actually done that. We really want to maintain a focus on climate change. Obviously, the pandemic is very serious. There are a lot of lessons to be learned from vis-a-vis climate change about how we handle this moment in time. Climate is kind of a similar trajectory of COVID, but over a much longer period of time. And so we're looking at ways to maybe reflect and learn from what's happening now, and actually use those insights to help people understand climate change. But we are going to stick to stories about the climate and let some other people do the music related to the COVID crisis.
Well, that also brings us to the end of the conversation. Thank you, Laurie, once again for taking our time and sharing details about Climate Music Project. And thanks also to our audiences for tuning in. If you want to leave any comments and feedback, look us up at realnewsnetwork.com. For myself and the rest of the team here at the Real News Network, it's goodbye for now and be well.